Have you ever felt a nudge to do something that didn't make sense on paper? Something bold, maybe even a little wild. And you immediately thought, well, wait, is this God? Or am I about to wreck my whole life? When a call of faith looks a lot like foolishness, how can you tell the difference? How do you know when it's really God leading you to step out and it's not just your emotions or your restlessness or your Pinterest fueled dreams? If you've ever wrestled with that question, then you're in good company because, oh my goodness, I have been there too. So let's talk about how to tell the difference between a leap of faith and a leap off of a cliff that you were not meant to jump off. Welcome to the Confident Christian Woman podcast. This is where we tackle questions about things that have been keeping you stuck in unfulfillment, dissatisfaction, or straight up misery. This is where you find the help that you need to move forward from confusion, fear, or self-doubt into joy, fulfillment, and peace. This is where we become confident Christian women who don't only believe, we obey. Before we dive into today's question, I have a gift for you that goes hand in hand with what we talk about here. It's called the Clarity Roadmap, and it's only a couple of pages long, so it's easy for you to digest. It will help you to reflect and pray and take action as you listen along. So grab it at the link in the show notes. In this episode, we are tackling the question, how do I know if it's really God who's asking me to step out in faith, or if this is just me being reckless? This isn't about giving you a one-size-fits-all formula. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my job. As I say all the time, it is not my job. This is about helping you to tune in. And when I say that, I mean to tune into God's voice, to tune into your own resistance, and to start to distinguish the line between fear and wisdom. Because sometimes the thing that feels reckless is actually an invitation to radical obedience. And on the other hand, sometimes the thing that we are calling faith is actually just impatience dressed up in a spiritual costume, okay? So with all that being said, let me tell you a story. For 2 whole years, I stood at the window of my corporate office with a heavy heart, heavy, and a restless soul. Deep down, I knew that God was asking me to leave that job. But every single time that I felt that nudge, I pulled back. I would say, no way, no way, God, that is reckless. I have a mortgage to pay. I have a lifestyle to maintain. I have responsibilities. I can't just leave with no plan. Does that sound familiar to you? Honestly, I really thought I was being wise. I thought that staying, although I felt like God was nudging me to leave, I thought that it was the mature, responsible, faithful steward thing to do. But here is the truth that I didn't want to admit then. I really wasn't staying out of wisdom. I was staying out of fear. And I really didn't want to trust God with what came next because He hadn't given me any guarantees. He hadn't even given me a basic plan. He had not given me a career plan. He didn't give me a blueprint of where or how to move forward. He didn't give me a hint of what I was supposed to do instead. Nothing. I had nothing. All I had was this persistent sense that I should let go of this season because it was over and it was dead. And so I kept clinging to this job that I had grown to dread. And I kept telling myself, I'm just being cautious and I'm being smart. Meanwhile, in reality, I was calling fear, discernment. And I was calling my need to control everything wisdom. Well, eventually, God kicked me straight out of that job. He had them make me redundant. Even as that whole thing was unfolding, I knew it was God behind it. Right? Because he was like, I've been telling you to let go and you wouldn't let go, so I'm going to pry it out of your fingers. And then, on top of all of that, he went on to dismantle every single thing that I had built my security and my identity around. Everything. The toxic relationship that I was clinging to, gone. The lifestyle that I was clinging to, gone. The house and the luxury car, the house up on the hill, the luxury car parked in the driveway, gone. All the stuff I had filled the house with, gone. Every single thing that I was clinging to because I thought I needed it to feel successful and safe, gone. And let me tell you, it might sound like it was punishment. It might sound like God was punishing me for being disobedient, but it was not punishment, actually. It wasn't. It so wasn't. It was a mercy-filled reset. Because when I wouldn't willingly let go, God removed the things that I thought were holding me up so that I could learn to stand with him and to lean on him. In fact, all of those things were my idols. And I don't know if you know it, but God does not tolerate idolatry. If you were not clear on that, please take a walk through the minor prophets. Go into the minor prophets in your Bible and read about God's intolerance for idolatry. He does not tolerate it in his children, and he does not tolerate it in you or me. So he removed all of those things that I had built my security and identity and feeling of success around. And he did it so that I could learn to lean on him instead and to put him in the place where only he belonged. What I thought was a reckless step turned out to be actually God inviting me to a reset and a restoration. And when I say a restoration, I mean a restoration of who he had called me to be from the very beginning and to do what he had called me to do from the very beginning, before I had gone off on this tangent of following what other people said I should follow, right? But I had to stop hiding behind the label of responsibility in order to accept that invitation. I had to stop hiding behind that, what I was calling responsibility, just because I didn't feel like I was in control, right? So, all of this makes me think about Abraham. We talk about Abraham a lot on here. And the truth is, his story is so applicable. It's so applicable to where a lot of us find ourselves. So we talk about him a lot, and we'll talk about him today, and we'll probably talk about him. Well, for sure, I'm sure we'll talk about him again in the future because it's so applicable. There's so much to learn from his story. Genesis 12 verse 1, God says to Abraham, leave your native country, your relatives, your father's family. This is all the things that Abraham knew, right? All the familiar things. And God says to leave all that stuff and go to the land that I will show you. God did not give him a map, didn't give him a plan. All he said was go. And guess what? Abraham obeyed. He obeyed without knowing where he was going. And that sounds like what a lot of us would call recklessness. Unless you trust the one who's giving the directions. Hebrews 11 verse 8 says, it was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and to go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. He went without knowing where he was going. Oh my gosh. Hives. A lot of us break out in hives just thinking about leaving something without knowing where you're going, right? But here's the difference between recklessness and faithfulness. Recklessness says, I'll do whatever I want and hope that God blesses it. Meanwhile, faith says, you know what, this doesn't make sense to me, but I know that this is what God has told me to do, and I trust him enough to move, even though it doesn't make sense to me. One is driven by impulse and questionable motives, and the other is driven by intimacy with God and a desire to be obedient to him. So God is not asking you to leap blindly or recklessly. He is asking you to move even when the path ahead is not crystal clear to you. Remember that it's crystal clear to God, You're the one who doesn't know. I was the one who didn't know what God had for me. But he knew. He knew the path. My hang-up was that I didn't know the path. And God was asking me to trust him. And I refused. I said, no, I will not. And that's the choice that is in front of you now. So let's reframe this question. Instead of asking, is this reckless? It might be, but that's not necessarily the best question for you to be asking now, right? Instead, here are the questions to ask yourself that can help you to uncover your true motives and what is really going on behind your hesitation. And remember now, in all of this, I'm not telling you that you must take that leap. I'm not telling you to jump. I'm telling you that what needs to happen now is that you need to get up an understanding of what it is that is causing your hesitation in the first place, the truth of it. Because maybe it is the warning signal is heaven sent and saying, like, you're not doing this from the right place, or this is not what I want you to do. And maybe on the other hand, it is fear, right? Maybe it is your own on the other hand, maybe it is God inviting you into faith. All right, so let's go with the questions. What fear is causing me to question this prompting? What am I clinging to that God has already released me from? How am I confusing peace with comfort? Let me tell you something. Comfort is a huge stumbling block to forward movement and to obedience. We get comfortable and resistant to obedience because it means changing and moving out of our comfort zone. So examine that like real close. What am I calling wisdom? That's really just fear in disguise. And here's a harder one. Like, listen up. If you tune back in, please. If God never gave me the full plan, but simply just gave me himself as my guide, would I move? Would I still move? You see, sometimes it's not that we're wrestling with the risk. It's not a risk. Sometimes we're wrestling with control. So let's make this actionable. Here's what I want you to do this week. Ask God for clarity in one area where you've been hesitating, just one. And then journal the answer to this prompt. Again, remember, I don't ask rhetorical questions. We're not about rhetorical questions around here. We're about questions that help to unearth truth that sets you free. So here's your question. What do I fear losing if I obey God? That's where the real work begins, because once you identify and call out what it is that you're afraid to lose, then you can finally start surrendering it to God, right? And then ask yourself, what is one small step of faith that I can take this week? Not a whole giant leap, just one small step of obedience. If you want to open up an even deeper conversation with God, you can use this prayer prompt if you want to. Lord, if this is you calling me forward, help me to recognize your voice. If I'm holding on to something that you have asked me to release, help me to loosen my grip. And please give me the courage to obey even without the full picture. And remember now, this is not just a prayer to pray. If you're really praying it with the desire for an answer, then you will allow him to help you to recognize his voice. You will allow him to help you to release the things that you're gripping. And you'll allow him to give you the courage to obey. Right? You will allow all of that to happen. All right, let's bring this home. It is not reckless to obey God when you don't have all the details. That's not recklessness. What is recklessness is trusting your fear more than you trust the Lord. If he has been nudging you repeatedly, gently, consistently, the way that he was nudging me for 2 whole years, then you already know. You already know. And it is not about rushing. It's about becoming obedient. So even if you have clung to the old season like I did, and even if it takes a divine shove to get you out of it like it did for me, and even if it's messy and painful like it was for me, God will walk with you through it like he did with me. And he'll be with you when you get to the other side of it like he was for me. You do not need the whole blueprint to move. And honestly, you're wasting your time if you think you're going to get one. You're not going to get one. What you do need is to trust the one who is leading you, wherever it is that he's asking you to go with him. If today's episode stirred something in you, whether it was hope or clarity or even just a little nudge, don't forget to download the Clarity Roadmap. It's a free guide that's designed to give you a quick jumpstart out of feeling stuck. You can print it, pray through it, or use it as a journaling companion if you want to. Remember, you do not have to have all the answers. You only need your one next step. And this free roadmap is a great place to start. To get it, all you need to do is to click this link in the show notes.